the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Yes, let's get into it.
This is a very, very big episode for Christina as well. Hi, everybody.
Oh, we're back.
Welcome.
Hello.
And this is episode 102.
102?
So we're covering Parasite and the 2006 classic. It was a classic when it was released.
It was. It was unexpected, that's for sure. I think that without Christina here, we probably never would have talked Parasite, so thank you for that.
I've literally been waiting for 13 years to talk about The Host, so, I'm just out of my mind excited for this episode.
Oh, dear. So hang on tight, kids.
I actually just read in, I think it was The Hollywood Reporter, it might have been Variety, about all the limited release films that got nominated for Best Picture that are now getting, a bump up. Like the screens for Parasite increased from like 300 screens to like 800, which is a big deal for a foreign language film. And that 1917 got increased, the number of theaters.
Right.
Jojo Rabbit was re-released.
Yep.
In some cases, back to areas where it had already been, so it's nice. As frustrated as I get about the Academy Awards sometimes, it's nice when you see films like this that are normally underrepresented in the media, getting a sort of a second chance at an audience.
Yeah. We do have a little bit of news if you want to dive into
that.
Yeah,
go ahead. Let's do news.
I know this came up. Obi-Wan Kenobi already in trouble, production halted. Ewan McGregor's going on record saying, listen, it happens. But from what I understand, that production was halted and that people were sent home. What I understand is that they just felt that the storyline was hewing a little too close to The Mandalorian. And far as flavor, looks, I don't know.
Oh, is it about baby Luke instead of baby Yoda?
I guess, right, exactly. I mean, think of the parallels. He's a loner in the desert watching after a child. But I'm not too worried. Of course, the internet's all up in arms over this.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do, right? Make it the best possible show that you can.
Yeah, so at least stop and realize now, hold on. Yeah, this is just a little too, let them work out the kinks now. I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, I read something that they're dropping it down to 4 episodes.
Well,
from 6.
Which I'm fine with. You don't want to overstay your welcome, which a lot of these Netflix shows end up doing.
Well, look at how much we complained about those filler episodes on Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And that was only 8.
Every single Marvel show on Netflix, maybe with the exception of Daredevil, but they go on far too long, I think, much longer than they need to. So tell the story and get out. Drop the mic, as they say.
There is an online petition to have Brie Larson step down as Captain Marvel.
What?
Well, right now you're talking 27,000 signatures. Because if you know your Captain Marvel history, Monica Rambeau, who is a black character, and we did get her in Captain Marvel as a side character. She was the original Captain Marvel who showed up, I think, in like 1982 Avengers. Carol Danvers did not become Captain Marvel until like 2012. She was Ms. Marvel.
Right.
And then she went on, she was binary, she was Warbird, she had all kinds of different monikers. But here's the mission statement. We need Brie Larson to step down from her role to prove she is an ally of social justice and ensure a gay woman of color plays the role. Let Monica, the original female and black Captain Marvel, instead of whitewashing characters, for the benefit of the straight white men running Disney.
So I always thought that they were going to hand them the franchise off to Monica eventually anyway, which is
you
why
kind of
they
got
were.
that feeling. Yeah, that's why they brought her in. Why bring her in otherwise?
Yeah, and I mean, I know you're saying 27,000 signatures is a lot of signatures, but Captain Marvel made over $1 billion
Yes,
worldwide,
correct.
so this
Yeah.
is like a teeny tiny,
I know.
like
It's still
teeny, like a tenth of a tenth, you know.
But again, but these are the people that make the most noise.
Yeah, and that's frustrating.
And it is
Mhm.
frustrating. We saw it with the Last Jedi in just the negativity that just builds, and these people who sit behind their computers and like, yeah, I'll sign that. I mean, Captain Marvel 2 has already been greenlit. And as far as I know, Monica Rambeau's character is slated to show up in the WandaVision TV show.
Right. And as you both know, characters don't go to waste once they're introduced in a Marvel movie. So you know that they have plans for this character.
Unless you're Terrence Howard.
Well, that's
an actor.
Yeah, that's
But
an actor.
They just
the
replaced
character didn't go
again,
away.
Yeah.
No, I know the character, but this is why we can't have nice things, people.
I mean, these are just rabble rousers, really. They're people just trying to make noise for the sake of making noise.
But all it serves to do is create publicity for Captain Marvel too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even give Captain Marvel that great of a review when we
Yes,
talked about
I think
it.
that we came close to blows over that.
Because I was really kind of I didn't. But you had valid points, and if anybody wants to go back and listen to this episode, but I didn't like her character, and I don't know. But Jim, you fought the fight that she didn't really know who and what she was, so you're not getting like full on a fully developed character. Yeah, and Christine is shaking her head frantically here. So I maybe did it a disservice, but that doesn't mean I want the actress removed from the movie.
Right. There's a difference between a preference, like for whatever reason, not everybody connects with every performer or with every movie or with every story. And like, I accept that. But, going out there and like trying to deliberately sabotage someone's career for what? Like for your personal satisfaction?
Right. Because she doesn't agree with what you have to say or this, and this should have actually been like the minute she was cast, this should have been front and center if you had an issue with it, that they weren't going down the road of the original Captain Marvel.
Right, because it's clearly not about that. It's just, it's about people who don't like Brie Larson.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, correct.
For whatever reason.
So, anyways, I do have one more news item, but I don't even know if we want to talk about it at this point.
Oh, come on. Now you've got to.
It's just 2 more live action Disney movies have been greenlit. These are classic Disney anime. One of them I'm actually kind of excited for.
Aristocats.
That would be awesome. But they do it in like Thundercat style. That would be so up my alley.
The Rescuers.
Oh, that's another one. Dude, you need to be on their panel because they went with Bambi.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's not really. So again, it's going to be like Lion King. Then it's not really live action. It's just
they use this live action willy nilly because it will not be. It'll be CG. But Favreau's not connected in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. Because you don't really you have no humans. You see the hunter for like a split second. So you don't really have any. But the other one is Pinocchio. And Robert Zemeckis is set to direct. And that one, I perked up at.
If they cast as Geppetto Roberto Benigni,
he already did it.
So meta.
He already did that.
He already did
as
it.
Geppetto, I know. That's why I say.
Yeah.
As a meta reference.
That'd be confusing.
But he was Pinocchio. He wasn't Geppetto.
No, he's Geppetto, the Italian version. Right?
I thought he played Pinocchio.
I was a kid. Oh, we're digging into our notes.
Checking IMDb while we're on. I actually have some news.
Cool.
It's actually relevant to today's feature, which is there's going to be a black and white release of Parasite.
A black and white release.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And apparently, Bong Joon-ho, the director, has always wanted to release a black and white film ever since he saw F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu.
Ooh, well, if you're going to pick a black and white movie.
The success of this film has allowed them, the opportunity to go back and release the film in black and white. And he said it feels like a completely different experience in black and white. Because I do think color to a certain extent is important in this film. So
it especially when you get into the different classes,
So I think it'd be really interesting to see how that would affect the feeling of the story.
Interesting. I'll write on that. Which apparently he's doubling down on this whole Parasite thing because there's a limited TV series in development for HBO. Yeah, I guess he said that there were some story elements that just didn't make it into a 2-hour movie, and he felt that he could really kind of pad this out and play up the themes a little bit more in a 6-7 hour series.
I mean, I would be interested. I would watch it.
But yeah, that's all the news I have.
I've got a funny piece of news that I read. If you're a subscriber to any Disney Park blogs, you'll probably have seen this. But apparently in Disneyland and in the Magic Kingdom Disney World, they have got the Sword in the Stone in front of the carousel, right behind each castle, right? So it's a photo op kind of a thing where a kid can stand there and get a picture taken trying to take the sword out of the stone. And I think randomly somebody hits a switch and if they like the looks of the kid, it doesn't come all the way out, but it comes out a little bit, right? So shocking everybody.
It's kind of like when Captain America just slightly moves Thor's hammer.
But in Disneyland about 3 weeks ago, a very burly man, as he was described, was a visitor to the park, and his friend kind of dared him. They said, hey, if you pull that out of the stone, you win a prize, I heard. So he took it upon himself to struggle to rip the sword out of the stone, and he broke the sword in half, and it came out of the stone. Staffers
impaled his friend,
engulfed him as soon as it happened. And they had to actually cordon off because it was a danger now because it's got these jagged edges sticking out.
But they did hail him as king, so he is now.
He did not win anything, and from what I understand, the sword has now been replaced, and it is back to normal. But yeah, you would think that when the thing doesn't want to come, he just kept tugging and tugging and tugging. I think he had his foot up on the stone at one point, and he ripped this thing out.
You'd think there'd be some oversight and stuff, something like that.
Yeah, you'd think somebody would have stopped him.
You think this is a good idea that we let these people try to pull this out? Yeah, it's only going to move a little bit. Don't worry.
So I think the first TMI, I don't want to call it the Darwin Award.
So I have clarification on the Roberto Benigni Pinocchio debate. Yes. So he's actually played both Geppetto and Pinocchio.
Yes, I could swear I remembered him with a little makeup on his cheeks.
I was thinking of him as from the last year's release. He played, so it was 2019 Italian release of Pinocchio, and he played Geppetto. And in the 2002 release, he played Pinocchio.
So we're both right.
We're both right.
Okay. In the 2025 version, he's going to play Monstro.
He's already played a character called Monstro.
There you go. Typecasting.
Il Mostro.
I would like him to play actually that character on Pleasure Island that turns the boys into donkeys. I think he would be good. He's kind of scary, Roberto.
Smoke a cigarette. Come on, boys.
That it's so funny. When I was a kid, that scene did not affect me at all. And when I got older and I watched it after my son was born, and the kids start crying and saying, "I want to go home to my mom,"
right.
I burst into tears. I was like, "No,
this is horrible."
They need to go home to their mother.
First you killed Bambi's mom, and now you do this.
That's what you get for smoking.
That's right,
It is funny
kids.
how things affect you differently as you age.
Yes, it's true.
You know,
you can just break out into tears for any random reason. So, okay, well, let's get into this because this has been coming for a long time. Mm-hmm. Parasite.
Oh, so excited.
Winner of the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. I'll have a croissant with that.
I was going to say that's my favorite appetizer.
A unanimous jury decision.
Very well deserved. 6 nominations in total at the Oscars. Again, we're not quite sure if it's Best Director or not, but it should.
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Now, this was very misleading. This is why a few weeks ago, I think it was last week, that I told Jeff, who hadn't seen it yet, that the less you know about this going in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially after seeing The Host, that this is some kind of a horror movie.
Yeah.
Just by the title alone. But that is not the case. And before we go any further, anybody that listens to this show regularly knows we spoil things. So if you have not seen Parasite,
if you've not seen this,
stop listening and go watch it right now.
It really is a gift that just unfolds before you because you clueless. I mean, even the description, the movie poster, nothing really gives away anything that other than that something insidious may or may not happen. Like you don't really like you're kind of like waiting for something to.
Yeah.
So let's
And
go.
it does. Stuff does happen, just not what you're expecting.
No.
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack, folks.
So the basic setup of the plot here is a lower class family, and they do have a low set of standards.
Literally.
Yes.
They live in a basement.
They live in the basement below street level, and they're looking at some guy urinating most days out when they look out the window. Father, mother, son, daughter, both teenagers, and they're always looking for some kind of a scam. And at the beginning of the movie, they are folding cardboard pizza boxes as a means to survive. That's their family job. Now, I don't think that you can do that for Pizza Hut here. That'd be a pretty good gig.
No, they
can't
take the boxes away from them. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
They don't even do that right. They're
think
about
about
to be
the
fired.
fact that all those boxes are now covered in fumigation as well.
The son, Ki-woo is his name. He has a friend, a buddy, who is a rich college kid. And Ki-woo is college age himself, but he can only dream of the things that his friend is doing.
His friend's name is Min?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes.
Not only is he about to go overseas to America, I believe he was going, but he is leaving a job as an English tutor to a rich, well-to-do family, the Parks, and he offers Ki-woo to substitute for him while he's gone. Of course, he jumps at the opportunity, but I don't have any credentials. So with some help, he gets a fake diploma made, and he presents himself to this family, the Park family, and gets the job as an English tutor. Now, his friend had told him to keep his hands off of this girl that he's going to be tutoring because he's fallen in love with her. And she's a high school.
I was going to say, meanwhile,
right?
she's like 16, most, maybe.
He says he doesn't tell him to keep his hands off.
Right.
He says that he trusts him.
Right.
And it's sort of interesting because it's his friend clearly doesn't see him as a threat, which is kind of an insult, really, if you think about it.
Like, listen, she's mine. As soon as she goes to university, baby, I'm all over it.
He doesn't think that Ki-woo would be like attractive enough to her to even cause a problem. He says, "Oh, I don't want like any of those drunken college jerks like, hanging all over her."
Right.
He just assumes that Ki-woo won't do any of those things. The thing about this family is at the very beginning when you first go into the apartment, you see the father, Ki-taek. He's laying on the floor like completely passive. He can't even work up the energy to tell the guy outside to stop peeing in the street.
Right. Yeah.
He has no sense of self-worth. And the fact that Ki-woo is able to get this job almost becomes like the whole family's self-worth is sort of tied up in, this sort of legitimate position that he's getting by misrepresenting himself.
Right. And to your point, when his friend shows up to visit him, he chases that guy off that's peeing in the street.
Yeah.
Right.
So he assimilates not only his job, but his confidence as he becomes him, as he wills himself to take over his personality and as a rich person.
And it's so important, I think, the cast is really amazingly subtle in this film that you see sort of the physical changes that occur in them as they, start to infiltrate the Park house.
Yeah, it's amazing because at first you're like, these guys are just flat up losers. And then all of a sudden the sister's like, she's like, oh,
she cleans up nice,
smarter.
right?
She's smarter than she lets on. And they all are kind of, like I said, insidious.
Now, talking about physical changes, it really, watching this movie made me realize how much time has gone by between the host and Parasite, because Ki-taek, played by Song Kang-ho, looks like so much a young man in the host.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's aged into this character, but you realize more than 10 years have passed.
Yeah.
And so, it makes sense.
But he
it's
looks,
just
but I
shocking,
think, but I think that they probably purposely made him look grizzled and just like despondent. He's just, like Christina said, he has no like self-worth whatsoever.
And he could very well be playing the same character older as he did in the host, because it's very much the same laissez-faire kind of a mindset.
The interesting thing is Bong Joon-ho's only done 7 features, like full-length features, and 4 of them have had Song Kang-ho in them. And if you look at like their body of work together, Song Kang-ho has played such different people in every role that he's played for Bong Joon-ho. and there's such an immense trust between them. It really reminds me a lot of the way that Toshiro Mifune and Akira Kurosawa work together. I saw an interview at the Toronto Film Festival with the cast and the director, and the interviewer asked Song Kang-ho, like, when the director comes to you, what does he tell you about the story? You know, does he tell you about the themes? Does he tell you about the plot? Does he tell you whatever? And Song Kang-ho said, he just tells me he has a script and I say yes.
Right, and I say yes. Yeah. I'm on board, dude. Yeah, whatever.
And then
truly amused, yeah.
Yeah, and then Bong Joon-ho said if Song Kang-ho didn't like the script, he would have gone back and rewritten it completely, because
now you tell me that
the litmus test for whether or not it's actually good. There's just such a huge trust between them, and it shows on screen.
Every time he's on screen, Song Kang-ho, he is riveting.
Yes.
And when he does nothing, he's riveting.
Yes, yeah.
Like, you get completely sucked in just to his face.
He's subtle. He's a very subtle performer.
Yeah.
He can do something like with an eye twitch, like with a muscle moving in his jaw. You know, he's just such an incredible. I actually get infuriated that he hasn't been nominated for like 1 zillion acting awards in the West.
Right. Now, we did get the ensemble of Parasite won the SAG Awards Best Cast, which was great, and they were all there, which was very rewarding to see them all on stage together. Getting back to the plot, Ki-woo gets the job as the tutor. So he is so impressed with the money that he's making, the house, and the simple-mindedness of the mother. So he gets it in his head that if he can get one over on her, she doesn't even look at his credentials. She's just like, you know, as long as the other guy recommends you, that's good enough for me.
Yep.
And the daughter loves him. But he's thinking he's got a good thing going here. Why not introduce his family into the mix?
There's something interesting that happens there, though. So the mother, like, she seems like a ditz, right? Or maybe like narcoleptic, because she always seems to be asleep. You know, like people. Like,
that was a weird thing that you never really figured out what was going on.
Fall asleep in the middle of nowhere.
I thought maybe she was drunk, but
the first time you see her counting out Ki-woo's pay, she like counts out a certain amount of money. She puts it into the envelope, and then she, like, you can see she sort of second guesses herself, and she says, maybe he's not worth that much. She takes some money out, tucks it away, and when she hands him the envelope, she says, I gave you a little more than I used to give to men, you know, because of inflation. You know, so she's kind of a ditz, but she's not as dumb as she seems, you know, and that's the first time where you're like, that's pretty, you know, that's kind of a bitchy thing to do, you know, just to like hold back the the money like that, and then to say she was giving him more.
Min says to him that she's kind of slow.
Ditzy,
So that's what you're thinking when you're introduced to her. And so little things like that are a bit surprising. But at the same time, she does get taken in by Ki-woo, because then she hires
his sister,
the teenage sister,
Ki-jung,
to tutor, like as an art tutor for the younger brother.
And the scene when he brings her to the door and they're about to go in for Ki-jung's interview, they have this little singing mnemonic that they do.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, you're right.
Which is fantastic. You know, like, so that she remembers all the things. Like, she's a cousin's classmate. Her name is Jessica. She went to school in Illinois, and Ki-jung's transformation from this sort of slack-bodied, foul-mouthed person in real life to Jessica, the art therapy teacher, is incredible. Like,
it really kind of threw me, because I'm like, what is going on here? Because the character is just like this throwaway slob.
But then when she transforms, she knows what she's doing. It looks like that she is a qualified tutor.
They're like con artists.
She's so commanding. Like, she tells the mother, I would never have parents in the room when I'm teaching.
Right. Yeah.
And has such a strong force of will that the mother, it's her house, right? It's her kid. It's her money. She has the right to say what she wants and to come into the room. She like just sits at the table sort of nervously juddering because she doesn't know what's going on, but she's almost afraid of Jessica. You know, to defy her. It's so interesting.
And Ki-woo and Ki-jung, they're reveling in their roles that they're playing. that they become these rich characters. And Jessica, Ki-jung, is so nervous going into the house before her first meeting with the mother, but Jessica takes over as soon as she walks in.
Yeah.
And so it's worked twice. Why not go for a third?
Strike.
Now, this is more Jessica's or Ki-jung's game than her brother.
Right.
They insist that the chauffeur bring her home. Now, this is a very nerve-wracking scene in itself because she obviously can't have him bring her home. They're going to see where she lives.
Yep.
So she insists that she gets off at the train station to meet her boyfriend. And you don't know where she's going with this.
This was a really weird, like, what is about to happen here?
She takes off her underwear while she's in the car and shoves it under the passenger seat. And that's the end of it. The father finds it the next day and tells his wife about it. And they assume that his chauffeur, who's a young guy, had somebody in the car. And
I love the way they break it down like it's a crime scene.
Yeah.
Like put the underwear in an envelope.
And when the father takes it out, I'm like, don't smell it. Don't smell it. And he does. Of course he does.
He does.
But his wife puts on the plastic glove. You know, it's like they're dissecting a crime scene.
Well, that's just it, because after a while he's like, well, wait a minute. If he had this girl in the back of the car, and if he thinks it's great to like shoot his semen all over my seat, you know, but it's pretty like that would be a major piece of clothing that you wouldn't necessarily think. So now all of a sudden they're starting to think, did he like kill this girl? Like,
were there drugs involved?
Right, yeah, the drugs, like the coke. Oh, not the coke. Yeah, it was just like it just ramped up to like 20 in a heartbeat.
We find out that this is just the way that Ki-jung is trying to get this guy fired so they can hire her father, who used to be a driver himself.
Yep.
So all three of them can now work for the family. So that's exactly what happens. The original chauffeur gets fired, and then
hey, I know somebody.
Yeah, and then the
Friend
dad starts in.
Well, that's the interesting too. So he gets to keep his name, right? Because Kim is their last name, and you get the sense that somehow that their dad isn't as good at scamming people. You know, he seems more nervous when he's first meeting Mr. Park, like he's going for a real job interview. You know, and like they don't change his name because it's like they don't want him to do anything too
crazy,
complicated,
right.
you know.
Right. Nope, this is your name. Stick
and
with
he's
that.
really the only one that's playing himself. It's like his own personality when he's driving the car. He's not putting on airs.
Listen, you're lucky you got this guy up and put pants on. So,
but I don't think that's true. I think that the reason why they got him up and he was willing to put pants on was because he had the chance to get some of his dignity back. Yeah,
he's enjoying doing this.
Right.
Because you did get the little lead up that he did drive at one point. You know, because that's what. It's crazy. So now all of a sudden you got three of these family members.
Yeah.
You know, parasitically infestating this.
Now at
house.
this point you realize, okay, this is not going to be a horror movie. The parasites.
They are the
family.
parasites. Yeah.
So we haven't mentioned the original housekeeper of the Parks yet, and now is a good time too.
Right.
Because they're now the only member of the Kim family that they haven't hooked up with a job is the mom. Right. And the only available job is of the housekeeper.
Yeah. So who's been with the house long before the family ever came.
Before the Park family came into it. Now, the house was designed, the original owner of the house who lived there was the architect who designed the house to begin with.
And let's talk about that a little bit, because that is a beautiful house.
Which they created for the movie.
I know. Both houses were sets. The Kim household was obviously built in a water tank for obvious reasons and plot points later. But the fact that this house was a set and not just a home that they found somewhere in Korea is pretty impressive.
And the production designer apparently went and talked to some architects, you know, to sort of for verisimilitude, you know, to make sure that the designs would make sense. And the architect said, what kind of idiot would build a house like this?
Because it's a fortress. It's completely closed off from the rest of the environment. It's a wall that, you know, when they're outside the house, you can't see the house at all. There's just a wall completely encasing this
Right, and that's really has so much to do with the film, right? Always you're ascending in their house. You're ascending the
Up
street.
the
The street
stairs,
curves up. You go in through the wall. You're going up the stairs to the house. You know, they're literally climbing from their poverty up to what seems like heaven,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
It's this verdant green, you know, the bushes and the trees, the green of the lawn is very bright and lush.
That's interesting you point that out because, right, during the scene when it's raining and they're making their way back to their home, it's all downhill. They're all just constantly, they're descending.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Literally.
All right. So they literally,
physically lower
see,
than this family.
where they come from compared to what
Right.
they're encountering here.
So now they set their sights on the housekeeper, who has really ingratiated herself into the Park family. She plays with a little boy all the time. So she's, a member of the family.
Right.
So they really have to dig deep in order to get her kicked out. So they take advantage of an allergy that she has to peaches. And this is just so insidious. I don't know what's worse, the underwear or this. But
right. No, the peaches, I think, are horrible.
So they
find out that peaches are forbidden in the house because she's allergic to them.
They managed to convince the mother that she has tuberculosis, that the housekeeper has tuberculosis.
Right, Moonguang.
And in order to do this, they're shaving the skin off of Peaches and blowing it on her as they're walking by her.
So she's getting an allergic reaction.
Yeah. So rashes, red face, sneezing, coughing. And at one point, they put, to mimic the blood on the handkerchief,
it's a hot sauce packet.
It's a hot sauce packet. And this is you said this is Machiavellian in their build up to this. And, she goes to urgent care and Mr. Kim just happens to be there and takes a picture of himself and he shows it to the missus. Oh, I just happen to be here. And isn't that your housekeeper?
Yeah, she's talking about tuberculosis.
I heard she had TB. Right. And
this scene is amazing.
It's crazy.
Amazing. Because it's cut with his real conversation with
Mrs.
Park.
Yep.
And the rehearsal in the house where they're
you're right.
Where they write out this dialogue for him to say, and the kids are coaching him like, your emotions are up here, bring it down to here.
No, you're up there, you got to bring it down here. Yeah.
And the hilarious thing about the scene is if you look behind Kitek while he's saying the lines, their mother is on the floor saying the lines in sync with him. Like she's mouthing the words because
the whole family's all in.
Like they've all gone over it so many times now that they know what he's supposed to be saying. But you can tell that the kids are really coaching him because I think to some degree he's uncomfortable with it. Yeah. More than anybody else in the family.
Right. Yeah, they're all in now on this. Mm-hmm. But the one thing we didn't really mention is the fact that this is a comedy. I mean, at least up front.
The first hour.
I was going to say, there was points where I laughed out loud. No, the second half, I sat with my hand over my mouth. I did not laugh. Only in the sense that you're just like, what am I watching? Holy crap. This family's, just burrowing in.
Yeah, and they do. They manage to do it. Every single member.
And you're amazed that they're pulling this off.
Yeah. So at one point, for a while, all four of them are employed by the family. So the mother becomes the housekeeper. And you feel really bad for the old housekeeper because that's her life, right? And you don't know how much of her life it is at this point.
Right. Yeah. But yes, they sent her packing. Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is, though, that even though they've all misrepresented themselves to get hired, right? And obviously they did some scummy things to get the driver and the housekeeper fired. But they're not... I thought that they would try to steal from them, especially when they did the fake service to hire the housekeeper, and they're like, "We need the title to your property. We need your financial information."
Yeah, which was weird.
And I thought, oh well, they're gonna now try to steal their bank accounts or get a hold of the house or something like that, but they didn't.
No, it wasn't even
they just want the work, and I think that's one of the most interesting things about this film is that even though they've done some scummy things to kind of get the positions, they're
still doing the job. Yeah.
They're working. They're doing the job. Yeah. They're not there to steal their jewelry.
As a matter of fact, Ki Jong, the daughter, is doing a bang up job with the
She
kid
is.
we haven't even talked about
And-
yet. That
and
song.
The dad
song,
is
is that his
actually
name?
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
getting on with the father as well. It
Yeah.
seems like he
Yeah,
enjoys their
yeah.
time together in the car.
Yep.
So I think that's it's almost like a red herring in this movie where you think this family is gonna, do something else, that this is going to be some kind of huge con, but it's not. They
No.
just wanted jobs.
Like you said, they validate themselves as human beings to get a little dignity back. Because they do talk early on about, the unemployment rate and that people,
Right.
Right.
And you can tell that Kitek really wants, like he feels grateful. They have like this dinner and they're like, let's give thanks to the parks, like who are paying all of our salaries. Like he's genuinely transformed by this, just, to have a job and to be able to make his own money and to buy food for his children.
Yep.
And I think that's something that's really overlooked. And because of that, I feel like you really do sympathize with them, even though I sympathized with them.
Yeah.
They in the very next scene in the rainstorm, they test that sympathy because they set up a party in the house.
Right.
Well, the parks take the song camping.
Right.
So they're now out of the house completely. So now all 4 family members can go back to being the Slaven lowlifes that
and it's
they
like
are.
the parents are gone and we're going to have a party. The parks have gone camping.
Yep.
There's an epic rainstorm going on outside. And the Kims are all there in the park's living room, and they've got all the junk food out, and they're toasting themselves for putting
down in alcohol, banging out.
Yep, and now they're all making a good living off of the
parks,
of the parks. And it's at this moment that the old housekeeper comes knocking on the door.
And this scene, I don't know if you guys got this sense, but when I was watching it, so the lightning keeps striking outside. So you see the big glass windows, right? You keep seeing the lawn. And he almost uses these big windows in the lawn like a red herring. Because I don't know about you, but I kept expecting someone to appear on the lawn.
Standing.
Right? Somebody who would be there, like, right? Like almost like a horror movie trope that someone would see them, someone who would become a threat to them, right? But the threat doesn't come from the place where you think it will.
But they're still setting it up,
right?
As if you're expecting a threat, which there is.
The threat comes from below.
And here it is in this seemingly harmless little old lady housekeeper who suddenly becomes sinister when she's trying to get into the house.
They're like, what do you want? When they kicked me out, I kind of forgot something.
Yep. The mother is supposed to be there because she's now the housekeeper.
Yeah.
So she's the one talking to her over the intercom as the original housekeeper's knocking on the door. So it's apparent that she is not going to leave until she lets her in. So the rest of the family hides. They go up the staircase and they're peeking around the corner. And the mother says, okay, come in, but then get right out again.
Yeah, you want to come downstairs with me, she said? No, it's fine. I'll stay right
Now,
here.
this is where the movie goes into Crazy Town.
Well, the doorway to the basement is completely dark for almost the duration of the film. So it's like this big closed eye.
It's like a void because there's no door there. It's just like an open space that you transcend to go down into the rock cellar.
And there's the wall is actually lit around it, like there's backlighting on the shelves.
Yep.
So the darkness of that doorway is emphasized every time the camera scans past it. And now you finally see why he lit it this way.
The old housekeeper goes through the door, and the mother, after she's in there for a while, the mother comes in after her.
Yeah, because they're like, what's going on?
And sees her in a Spider-Man pose,
right,
trying to push one of the bookcases.
One of the wall units, yeah.
Now, what's happening here is that the bookcase is hiding a fake door that opens into even a sub basement that goes below the real basement. And, it's a classic young Frankenstein kind of a fake bookcase, and they move it over. And what appears to be what looks like a bomb shelter that's under the house that the architect has built, that the Park family does not know about, because as far as they're concerned, their basement has a bookcase, and that's it. We go down into this bomb shelter because the original housekeeper scurries down there, and they follow her down, and there's a man living in the house.
Her husband.
Her husband.
I left something behind. Oh, yeah, my family.
She hasn't, this guy's been down there for however long. She's been taking care of this guy while she's been housekeeper for the parks. And ever since she got fired, she hasn't been able to get back in the house to even tell him.
Right, that she's no
not
longer
up
working
there
there
anymore.
Yeah.
So we're introduced to him, and he's been hiding out down here because I think the explanation is that he owes money to a number of
creditors,
loan
sharks. Yep.
Right.
So,
and you know that she's encountered them, Moon Gwang, the former housekeeper. She's encountered them because when she returns to the home,
she's all beat up.
Yep. And so as soon as she sort of was released out into the world, these loan sharks came after her looking for her husband.
I so very rarely get a chance to bring up this movie, but it reminded me of this old TV movie that they used to show on the 4:30 movie called Bad Ronald. And it was about this kid, this teenager that lives in the walls of a house. His mother is very possessive and keeps him hidden away from the world. But she's elderly and she dies, and a new family comes in, and he spends the movie spying on this new family from inside the walls of this house.
Bad Ronald.
Bad Ronald. And it reminded me of this because it's set up that even though the old housekeeper is gone, that this guy has the run of the house when nobody's home. So he can feed himself. He can do whatever in the house.
Right.
So he can come up and down and do as he pleases.
Right, and Yang Kyo tells the story to Chung Suk about how the Da-sung got his trauma, and it's because he saw a ghost in the house. And
this is what's wrong with a little kid, is him.
Yeah. I'd be freaking out too if I first grade and saw that guy pop out of that little black hole.
And it's such an unnerving scene. You just see his
eyeballs
come above the line of the staircase, and his eyes are like lit so that the whites of the eyes are almost glowing.
Yep. And the kid goes into a seizure.
Now, if this is not enough, we find out that the parks are on their way back from the camping trip because it's raining and they can't camp in this pouring deluge.
Yeah. No, we're about 8 minutes out, baby. Throw some water on the stove, make me some soup.
So at this point, Moon Gwang has found out that the whole family's there and that there's a scam, right?
Oh, yes, because she videotaped them on her phone.
Right. And the Kims now find out that her husband's living in the basement. So now it's like, who can sort of prevail over the other in terms of, keeping their secret from the parks? There's this epic battle for a phone. And then suddenly they find out the family's coming home. So now it's 8 minutes. The Kims have to get rid of the housekeeper and her husband. They have to, throw them back in the basement. And
duct tape them.
Clean up the mess they made in the house because there's all this like broken stuff.
Which they just sweep under the table, right? That's
literally, yeah.
And then Chung Suk has to make ramdon. Because...
And she's even like, what's ramdon? She didn't even know what it was. You're like, oh, crap. So you're like, oh, man, jig is up. And yet
because Young Kyo has called and said it's Da-sung's favorite. So please make it and have it ready the moment we walk in the door. Again, I think you see a little bit of that, just this absolute disregard for people who do labor for them as human. Because she's just like, just drop whatever you're doing.
Right, yeah. You're not doing anything anyways. Feeding the dogs.
And immediately make this dish because my son will want it. And of course, as soon as they walk in, he doesn't care.
No, he's mad because he didn't get to go camping.
The Kims now, they can't get out of the house once the parks.
Yeah, because they're not supposed to be there except for the mom.
So circumstances put them under the table that they were just celebrating at in the living room. The three members that aren't supposed to be there. They think that they're going to leave once everybody goes to bed. But no, the son wants to camp outside because he missed out on his chance to camp because of the rain. Right. So they set up the tent outside and he goes out there and they want to keep an eye on him. So they're going to stay in the living room on the couch.
Overlooking the window
while the three of them are hiding under the table. And there's a very uncomfortable sexual encounter between the husband and wife.
Mr. and Mrs. Park. Well, what about the fact that the daughter was texting Kevin as they got back home, and he's underneath the table with his phone, like responding to her. She's like, I wish you were here. He goes, I'm with you. Yeah, you're with me. I'm in the same house.
And now this is when the husband, the Park husband, lets go the little bit of information that he detects an odor coming off of Keytek that he can't describe. And then you just see Keytek under the table smelling his own clothes.
But
Like,
it
what?
happened a couple times because when the mom was first introduced as the new housekeeper, and the kid walks through the house, and he even says they smell the same. So there's like this, and I guess are they straight up just like, you lower class people stink. It smells like Subway.
That's what it is, right? Nathan
Yeah.
says it's like the smell of an old rag or the special smell. He uses the word special of people in the subway. And what it is it's the smell of poverty, right?
Yeah,
The Parks don't experience this in their literally rarefied air with their
correct.
house, which is above the whole city, and
Yeah.
they're surrounded by only wealthy people.
Right.
And when he says this, you see Keytek, he smells his shirt, and then you see like his face just changes. And he covers his eyes with his arm, and you can see all the dignity that he's gained by having this job.
Yeah, just taken away from him.
Just drained away from him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Too bad he didn't get one of those Gwyneth Paltrow candles that smells like private parts.
The divide is never greater than in the scene between them, because whatever
And they are literally
camaraderie
under the table, and the Parks are up on top of the couch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dad, just thinks of him as his employee. He's not his friend.
No,
just
waiting
an
for
employee.
him to, overstep his boundaries. And he said, the smell is what pushes him over, but I like him, and so we'll keep him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is where you really see the divide between the haves and have-nots, I guess.
Eventually, the husband and wife fall asleep on the couch, and it's almost unbearable. Them shimmying their way across the floor just to get out of the house.
The kid wakes up, and he's got that. Now, this is one thing that didn't really pan out, but you realize that the husband that's been in the basement was pressing the buttons to basically
flicker the lights.
The light as Mr. Park came in, to kind of like say, thank you, dude. You've put food on my table for the last 4+ years or whatever.
Again, that respect that Christina was talking about before, that the Kims are giving the family that's why they don't steal from them, because of the respect that they have.
Right.
And as does the husband that's in the basement.
But he's Morse coding, and the kid is the one thing that the kid's obsessed with American Indians. He's a Cub Scout or whatever. And so, he knows Morse code, and he sees the light flicker on and off. And at one point, when he's in the tent, he starts trying to decipher it, but it doesn't really go anywhere. He never really rats them out or says there's something going on with this light. They just think it's a malfunctioning light.
It's interesting because I feel like there almost wasn't even time, because it's the last hour of the film. But if you think about it, it's very compressed. It's not even a day from the time like the Kims are having their party in the rainstorm until the denouement of the film. It's less than a day.
You're right.
Yeah.
So as they finally do escape, and they're making it, and it's a deluge. They are just getting pummeled with rain. They make it back to their home, and all the streets are flooded. Their whole house is literally neck deep in water. Everything that they owned is basically destroyed. It's
sewage. It's just the nastiest water.
And that scene where the daughter is sitting on the toilet, and she finds her secret pack of cigarettes, and the sewage that's spitting out of it as she's just sitting there smoking. And then they have to kind of take refuge in an open stadium or wherever.
So not only has the husband and wife, the Parks, just hammered home that they are lower class, but they're now confronted with it physically with the flooded apartment. So they're living in it. The jobs and the roles that they're playing, the facade is just completely broken down, and they're back where they started.
Yeah.
The look on Song Kang-ho's face as he's leaving the apartment, he's holding this tiny box of his possessions that he's managed to save, and he's literally standing neck deep in dirty water. Yeah. He's looking around this remains of this shitty little life that he had, but it's his life, It's so devastating that, this is what I mean. Right? He's just this incredibly powerful actor that he can communicate that to you in, half a second.
Right.
All of this loss.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on the Scholar's Rock.
That was why Min came initially, to bring this special rock to the Kims. And the rock was supposed to bring prosperity into the house.
Which it did.
It did for a time.
And Ki-woo takes the rock with him when they leave. Like, you know, of all the things in the house, he takes the rock, and he's sitting in the gym and he's holding on to it. And his father says, you know, why don't you put that rock down? And he says, I can't, you know, it's attached to me.
It's holding me. Yeah, he goes, why are you holding it? He goes, it's holding me.
Now, this scene reminded me of the scene in the gym from The Host.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But instead of mourning the loss of the little girl, they're mourning the loss of their high class status for as briefly as they had it, I think.
Yeah.
So this leads us into the party scene.
Which, this is the most unbelievable aspect of this entire movie. That we just had, like, rain that destroyed half of the city, and yet there's no mud or puddles in this backyard for them to set up tables. And to me, it almost seemed like, all right, we are literally in two different worlds.
Well, it's so crazy because this scene where Young Kyo is going around planning the party, right? And she's talking on the phone, and she's like, "Oh, just come and, you know, don't bring any presents.
No gifts.
Right? And she's in the car, and Ki-taek is driving, obviously, and she's talking, and she's going, "Oh, the rain was such a blessing. It gave us such a beautiful day."
Right.
And you can see his eye twitch.
Like, because it destroyed his world.
Yeah.
Right. So for her, it's this beautiful blessing, and for him, it's a curse. This literally destroyed his life.
But this is the thing, which is they escaped the house only to be called back into the house the very next day because they're all invited to this party in one aspect or another. And, you know, here they are in this, you know, sleeping in their clothes.
Yeah,
that are all
and if they didn't, you know, if they didn't smell before, they're going to smell now.
And
at
that
this
is
party.
the scene where she's on the phone in the car, and as she just puts her finger up to her nose because she realizes that what her husband said was true, that he has this scent about him.
And again, she opens the window, and you just see his eye just sort of spasm.
Yeah, because he's completely aware of what she's doing.
Yeah.
So this party is supposed to be an Indian-themed party because the little boy is obsessed with American Indians. And the father, final straw for Ki-taek, asks him to dress up as an Indian for his son.
Yeah,
and Ki-taek doesn't want to. And he's like, remember, you're an employee. This is part of your job.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm,
he's like, listen, you're getting paid for the extra for this.
Extra.
Like no matter how much humiliation you suffer, the money should just smooth that over.
Now, meanwhile, Ki-woo is bringing the Scholar's Rock to the basement.
Because they were duct taped, I mean, down there, and they still were, like, the whole family members like, we still got to deal with this basement issue. Those two people are still down there. We need to figure out what's going on.
And Ki-jung and her mother are saying, well, you know, we should negotiate with them. And then her mother actually hands her a plate and says, bring them some food.
Right. So there is sympathy that, you know.
So they're like, wait, you know, everyone was too excited last night. Like, you know, the women of the family are sort of like cooler heads should prevail. Let's work something out. But then Ki-jung is diverted immediately by the Mrs. Park, who's like, oh, I want you to do something. And she doesn't have a chance to go down there. So Ki-woo goes downstairs with the Scholar's Rock, I think, because he says, I'm going to take care of the problem.
Yeah, because there's that conversation he has with the dad when they're in their, you know, laying in this, I don't know what it was. Was it, you know, like a stadium or something, you know, with all these other refugees. And he has this discussion about, you know, Dad, at one point you said you had a plan. And he goes, well, my plan is I don't have a plan. You know what? Because when you have a plan that goes awry, then you're disappointed. So you just go with it. So I think that Ki-woo was just like, I have a plan. I got to do something about this.
This is the most brutal scene in the movie.
This is where you're just like, yeah, because you're like, no.
Now, yeah, the husband that's been down in the basement has gone completely into Crazy Town because while he's tied up, he's been banging on the light with his head to do the Morse code message. So his face is bleeding. He looks like a bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
So, and there's a struggle when Ki-woo gets down there, and he ends up bludgeoning Ki-woo, the husband, with the Scholar's Rock. Not once, but twice.
Twice. You see the second time. It was just like, oh my
So
God.
brutal.
So he
The
leaves.
kid's already laying on the ground with in a giant pool of blood.
But we should point out that Ki-woo is not in the sub basement. He's in the regular basement, so he will be discovered regardless of what's going on at this party.
Because now the daughter is looking for him.
So the jig is up now. Eventually, okay, everything's breaking down.
You got 50, 60 people there off of this party. They're all in party dresses. You got the tables all set up. Everything's beautiful. The cake's coming out, and here comes this guy out of the basement.
Here comes chaos into the midst of this party.
And what's he do? He grabs a friggin' kitchen knife and off he goes.
And he's looking for Chung-suk because Chung-suk had actually kicked his wife down the stairs.
Yeah.
Because the Moon-gwang was rushing up the stairs to tell the Parks what was going on. And she just sort of, I was actually impressed by sort of her callous brutality in that moment.
It was like kind of like a, it was like a last ditch second, just boom, down she goes. Oh, man.
Right.
And that's a thump that rivals the thump on the gravestone at the beginning of Night of the Living Dead when she hits her head on the stone wall when she gets to the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah, it's not going to end well.
Her husband is completely out of his mind when he comes out of that basement, doesn't kill. We think that he's dead, Ki-woo, but and then enters into the party. Ki-jong is the first one that gets it.
Yeah, she's holding the cake, right? The cake that is supposed to represent the end of Da-sung's trauma.
Right, only brings it anew. He's got a whole new trauma now. There's that guy he saw 12 years ago.
The ghost, the ghost.
So he immediately seizures out.
Yeah, so Ki-jong gets stabbed. And
and
Ki-taek goes insane at this because he rushes to his daughter's aid at that point and nobody wants to help him.
Right, the reason is so Da-sung actually has had another seizure. At the site of his art therapy teacher getting stabbed by the ghost in the house.
Right.
And the Parks are only concerned about their son. Now, this is where, I understand you're a parent, but I really hate them in this moment. She has been stabbed.
Right.
She has been stabbed, and they don't even acknowledge that she exists. And that's, and the father is yelling at Ki-taek saying, throw me the keys, throw me the car keys. And meanwhile, all this is happening. Chung-suk is in a battle for her life with Gun-se, who's trying to stab her, because she killed his wife.
And it's at this point that the father goes after Mr. Park.
Well, that's
because that one last smell is what does it.
The keys have now ended up underneath Gun-se's body. Right, because
we had a shish kebab through him.
Because Chung-suk has prevailed and she's stabbed him in the side. And he moves the body and he smells the smell of poverty again, right? And he covers his mouth. He sort of makes this icky face.
Yeah.
And when Ki-taek sees that, it's just
that's it. That's
the straw.
He snaps. Yeah, it snaps. Enough.
So the father is then stabbed himself and killed by Ki-taek. And in the ensuing craziness,
chaos,
Ki-taek makes his way back into the house and goes down into the basement. So he becomes the ghost of the house. He takes the place of the husband down there. So he is now the inhabitant of the basement. We find out, as the movie goes into its kind of epilogue, that Ki-woo has actually survived. He's gone into a coma, but he's survived, and he wakes up at the end of the movie, realizes what's happened, realizes his father is down there because his father is doing the same thing with the Morse code on the light. And Ki-woo at one point is spying on the new inhabitants of this house, and he sees the light flickering, and he realizes that his father is in the basement. And he has this fantasy where he will get a college degree, he will get a good job, and he will buy the house. And you're seeing this unfold on screen as if it's happening.
I know. And you're kind of like, that's a little far-fetched.
And then he will be reunited with his father.
And his mother, who's also still alive.
And you see them, as this is happening, as this epilogue, so they're back to almost like a normalized state that they were in the beginning of the movie in their basement apartment. So they're kind of back where they were without the dad because he's stuck in the basement.
And without Ki-jong, who's dead.
Without Ki-jong, who is dead. So Ki-woo makes it his life's mission to get into that house and to be reunited with his father. And that's how we end, with the dad, with Keatek in the basement, and he is living off of the new owners of the house. So it is just by this time you're exhausted watching this, especially after that party scene and that following the rainstorm when they're stuck under the table. And like you said, the last hours, biting your nails on the edge of your seat stuff that Joon-ho just does so brilliantly.
It's such he's so good. You see this in The Host too. I think he's so good at balancing all these kind of tone changes that, you know, I think in a certain sense, like, this film wouldn't even be allowed in Hollywood. You know, people are like,
no, because it defies. Right. You can't just say it's this type of film, and that's why the least you know about it, the better. Because, right, yeah, if it was a Hollywood film, they probably would have ruined. And I think in the promotionals, he actually didn't even give anything away in the last half of the movie, whether it was production stills or story breakdowns, because he wanted that to be organic as far as audiences just kind of experiencing what was happening and not going with expectations. So,
I mean, I think the really important sort of central question of the movie is that, you know, like, who is the parasite? You know, because obviously Moon Gwang and Gyun Se, who's living in the Park's house without their knowledge, right? So he is like a physical parasite. You know, you have the Kims who manipulate the Parks in order to work for them, you know, so they're taking their money. But then the Parks rely on the labor of people that they see as subhuman for their own comfort. Like, so they're parasitic too. Yeah. You know, I think the amazing thing about this film is that everybody is a parasite.
Yeah, and even from the get-go, even before the Kims invade the Parks, they're like mooching the Wi-Fi off of whoever's living upstairs from them, right? Yeah. So they're parasites from the get-go.
Yeah. It is something to behold.
You know, I think the most devastating thing about the movie at the end is that whatever this family was, whatever the Kims were, they were a unit, you know? They were like a really tight family. And it's so devastating to see literally half of them, you know, sort of shorn away from that unit.
Whew, I'm exhausted just talking about it.
Well, yeah. So are we prepared to give buckets at this point in time? Have we thought about this?
I don't know. I literally just saw it yesterday, so it's. I know that Christina said she's been living with this for quite some time. So
yeah, I would like to give it 1 million buckets. I would like to give it all the available buckets.
Wow.
It was so powerful. I feel like it has so much to say, you know, about class and difference and how we treat people who are different from us, and about capitalism. And, you know, the visuals are so powerful. The cast is so amazing. Like, I feel like there aren't enough superlatives to describe. You know, we talked about Song Kang-ho. He's one of my favorite actors. I feel like, you know, he's sort of built this amazing resume of performances that are all so different from each other. Like I was saying before, if he was a Western actor, he would have won like 6 Academy Awards already for all the different kinds of work that he's done. But he's not the only one who's incredible. Like, Park So-dam as Ki-jung is outstanding.
Yeah. She plays two characters, really.
Yeah. Or even like Jo Yo-jang as Young Kyo, Mrs. Park. Her performance, like, it takes really something to like sort of walk that line, sort of the level of ditziness, right?
Right, without you just straight up hating her or
I just think everyone in this cast is so amazing. Like, this is a performer's movie.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's what you said. They were nominated as an ensemble.
Yeah, I give it 5. I give it 5 for sure.
So then we're going to add it to the list.
I was going to say, we're going to have to add it.
Yeah.
Done and done. There you go.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what we think.
I really hold the Host in very high regard, as do all of us. But I think this has an edge on the Host. Just a bit, but it does. I might have given it 5 as well. Now that one of us has, that's it. It's on the list.
Well, I still want to know what you guys think.
Oh, I thought it was phenomenal. Yeah, it was so fresh and unlike anything. But you're right. That last hour is it's a shock.
Yeah, but I love sitting in a movie and
Just watching
having
it
my
unfold.
expectations subverted
Uh-huh.
and absolutely not knowing where it's going or what's
correct.
coming next. I was elated walking out of even though it doesn't really end on a high.
No, I was going to say it's
But just because it's so good, you walk out just elated that you just,
it's an experience. It's just like 1917 last week.
Loved it.
Just the movies that have come out of Korea in like the last 20 years, there's just so much interesting, innovative work going on. And I feel like I'm so glad that people are paying attention to Parasite, because I'm hoping that it becomes a door for people to start looking into other Korean directors and other works of Korean film, because it's one of the reasons why I like to watch foreign films is because I like to travel. And for me, when you watch a foreign film, you get
a sense of
like a point of view that you don't normally experience. It takes you out of your comfort zone, but I think it's also important to be challenged in your worldview and also to recognize that people are still people everywhere in the world. And you get that if you watch foreign cinema. And actually, Bong Joon-ho said in his Golden Globe speech, right? He said, if you can get over the 1-inch barrier of subtitles, you'll be open to a whole new world of film.
And I couldn't think of a better segue, because we're going to be talking about another Korean film.
There you go.
Right now. So let's go to the concession stand, and we'll be right back. And we're going to be talking about The Host.
Hungry? Thirsty? The refreshment stand is open with everything to satisfy your taste buds. Here's the menu: the hottest, freshest, crunchiest popcorn, each kernel popped to its fullest with that real movie time taste. Cold drinks, you'll find your favorite ice cold, tasty, and thirst quenching. And hot dogs, hamburgers, and candy too. Now a short intermission, so you'll have time to make your selection before the show begins.
Okay, we're back. We've got another outstanding film from Bong Joon-ho. I'm kind of showing my hand here, but I don't think that's a surprise.
I don't think that's any surprise.
No. So we're going to be talking about The Host. So 2006, this was released. So quite a while that this has been.
Yeah, I'm amazed that it was that long ago, to be honest.
Now,
with
this
you.
obviously came up on my radar immediately because of my love of all things kaiju, Godzilla, and any giant monster flick I am going to be aware of. So I saw The Host pretty early on. I didn't get to see it in the theater, but I saw it soon after it was released on home video, DVD, and absolutely loved it. Just the take on the monster itself was very fresh, especially the scene where it first reveals itself. Broad daylight, massive crowd of people, and just anarchy when this monster comes out of the water, and no building of suspense, although this is an extremely suspenseful movie. But in terms of the monster making an appearance,
you get them right up front.
They subvert all these tropes of monster movies, and you get them right up front, and the movie doesn't suffer for it. It excels because of it.
The same sort of like tonal shift that he achieves in Parasite, right? Because the Host is like, it's like a part satire, it's part monster movie, and it's also like part family drama, you know, because the dynamics
family driven, absolutely,
of the family are so important to how the outcome of the film, is achieved. I think that one of the things I love about this film is how quickly the premise is set up. You have the sort of little prologue where the guy is asked to pour the formaldehyde into the drain.
Yeah, don't we know that's how we get sewer gators, right? It's like, come on, it's not going to end well
Because the
there.
bottles are dusty. This is such an evil character, played by Herschel, the sweetest character from The Walking
Dead. Just put it down the drain.
He is so evil in this movie. Oh.
And it's based on a real incident.
Yes, it is. That's terrible. It's terrible that it is.
Right. So there really was a case. It's known as the McFarland incident, where the U.S. military poured formaldehyde out that ended up in the Han River, and there were no mutated monsters that resulted. But it's funny too because there's a little almost second prologue a short time later where there's two fishermen who see something weird in the water and they actually catch the monster,
The baby
Right, the
version of
baby,
the
yeah,
monster.
baby
the
version
little
of the
one,
monster
yeah.
in a cup.
Yeah.
But then sort of
Would've-
jumps out or
It would have been a
startles
short
them
movie, right?
away.
You know what's
There you go, we
great
got him. We're
about
done.
this scene? Now, I haven't seen conservatively estimating that it's been 5 years since I've seen it. I think it's been longer. But I remember that scene, I think, more than any other scene, those two fishermen. And I was convinced in my own head that you see the monster, like the little baby monster.
Oh, yeah.
But
no,
that
they
was just me.
describe
You
it.
don't
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
see
no, you
it,
don't
but
see it
that was me. And I'm like, hey, did they cut that scene out? I'm like, no, it's just your
It's
own
all in your
idiocy
head.
that- yeah.
Filled in that gap.
There's only maybe 8 or 10 minutes between that little prologue and when the monster appears. So he does this really sort of rapid establishment of the characters of the family, the Parks in this case, who are, the father and his youngest son, Gongdu, run a food stand by the Han River. Gongdu has a daughter. He has a brother who showed up at her parents' day drunk. You get that information. And he has a sister who's like a champion in archery.
Not a gold medalist.
Right.
The bronze. So she's, they're
She's-
all
right, I was gonna
they're
say
all
she's-
underachievers. They're all
Yeah.
underachievers.
But it's amazing how fast the family dynamics get established. Again, just through sort
Right.
of behavior, right? So Gongdu is asleep when you first see him. He has his face on the food, on the change
Yep.
for the food stand, and his
Yep.
father sort of picks up his head,
Takes some change.
takes a change
and
underneath,
puts his head
drops
back.
his head again. And
I just accept your slobbiness.
Right.
And
Because
the-
the father he takes that personally. Like he feels he is to blame for that. So he nurtures him still as an adult.
like a grade schooler almost,
He
know.
does
like,
defend his lazy assness.
the one thing that's so telling in that scene is a girl walks by calling daddy, right? She walks in front of the food stand, and immediately Gongdu's head pops up like Pyeonseo, like he's looking for his daughter. He thinks it's her. Oh, it's not her. Okay, I'll go back to sleep.
Yes.
And then when his daughter does show up, this is one of those little subtle things that I love in a film. He sees her, first of all, it's like the sun just came out, when he sees her. His whole face transforms. But then he goes around, she's carrying her backpack from school, and he goes behind her and he's holding
And
up
he helps, as
the
if it's this
backpack.
great weight that he's got to help her
Mhm.
carry.
And he just doesn't want that pressure to be on her shoulders,
Burden,
It just tells you so much about him, I think, in that one little moment, like how much she means to him, even though he's, obviously like this sort of incompetent at life.
Right. And he's an incompetent father, but he's more her
Right.
friend than her
Yeah.
father. It's like you get the sense that they're buddies, even though he loves her more than anything. And let's set the scene. So they own this food stand on the Han River. The elderly father and the grown son and the son's daughter. So it's 3 generations here. And she's just gotten out of school, as we've just set up. And again, it's a busy day. And you see Gongdu's attitude towards work as well as life, where he's kind of mooching off of the squid. His father's taking orders, like almost in a restaurant, from all these people that have come to enjoy this sunny day on the Han River. And somebody places an order at the food stand, and then they go deliver it like a waiter would. So Gongdu is doing that he's got a number of dried squid, and he's like eating some legs, and the customer complains. So this is what you're seeing, and you get a feeling that this happens all the time, that he's constantly disappointing his father, but yet his father is making excuses for him and still loves him anyway. So this is the backdrop when we're first introduced to the monster, which shows up, which we've been introduced to in bits and pieces before as a baby. And then there's a great scene where there's a businessman who's going to commit suicide jumping off the bridge into the Han River, and he sees a shadow. And his friends are like, well, I don't see anything. And then he's like, this is why I'm killing myself. And,
Right.
and just jumps into the
Just
river.
jumps.
So it's set up that there's something there beforehand. So it's not just out of the blue, but This is the great scene, and this is one of the most memorable scenes in the movie for me. After the fisherman, where you see this thing hanging off of the
Right.
inside
It looks
of
like
the
a little
bridge.
cocoon type of thing. Yeah.
And a number of people see it that are just enjoying the river. They're like, "What's that? It's moving. No, it's alive. It's alive." And it looks like it's almost like a bat hanging upside down. And you can't really get a good sense of what it looks like because you're just seeing its back, and it looks like a giant one of those bags of food from 1917 that the rats hang off of, right? As you're watching it, Gung-do gets caught up in it as well. He's still got the tray of food that he's supposed to deliver, but he's like, "Yeah, what is that?" And he's looking at it with everybody else, and it just falls into the water.
Right into the water.
Great visual. Falls into the water, swims over because it notices the people watching it. And you're wondering, is this the first time the monster has ever come out, into the air? Is this the first time it's revealing itself? Has it just been staying in the shadows until now? But regardless, it's there on this day. And they start throwing junk food into the water. Like first, like a soda can gets thrown in, and it takes it. And then everybody starts throwing food.
Look at that. Yeah, let's go.
And then they lose interest because it swims away. This giant thing, it's like, it's swimming away. And then Gung-do is the one that sees it at a distance on the shore, running towards him. And this is the great thing because it just goes, there's no setup. There's no gradual.
All of a sudden it is, and this whole scene is horrific.
Anarchy starts, bam, right, immediately. And you're not prepared for it, just like everybody that's on the shore of this river is not prepared for it.
Yeah.
And you're trying to take in what this thing looks like as it's creating chaos, and it's killing people. It's knocking people out of the way. It's just it's a horrific, but it's also a completely riveting scene.
Yeah, it's a spectacle.
And the camera is really dynamic, sort of moving. Like at first it follows Gung-do in his point of view, as he's running up the slope, and like you sort of see him turn, so the camera turns and you see the monster sliding down, right? Can't get its footing. But then it sort of cuts away. There's a woman sitting on a mat with her headphones on, like all these people are running past her and she's looking down so she hasn't noticed, and then the monster just sort of like grabs her as it goes by, and it's an unbelievably brutal scene where you just sort of see all these people trying to get away and the monster's grabbing them. People try to run into a trailer to save
that was
it.
horrible.
The monster follows them.
And you just see the blood pouring out the back with their hands.
And you can only imagine what's happening inside that trailer.
Yeah, the trailer's shaking and you hear the screams.
And there's a great shot, one of the best shots in the movie, where you're seeing an overhead of the monster from a train that's passing over. And again, you're just seeing this full daylight pour on, and it's almost like a giant tadpole, 2 front legs and some ineffectual back legs, but it's running along there. A very unique monster, and it kind of reminded me of the early stages, and this is just my point of view, but of Hedorah, the smog monster, the early stages of Hedorah, because that he evolved over the course of that movie. But early on, he was a tadpole. It kind of brought the memory of that back to me.
That flayed mouth open that reminds me of the monster from Stranger Things, too, which obviously came much later than this.
Yeah.
But
the weird part of this, and this is like the big question mark, because this character is kind of a mystery. There's an American character here in the beginning of the movie that helps Gung-do with it. Gung-do like joins forces with him to try to get the doors of this trailer open that the monster has gone into with all these people. And they actually are successful. They open the doors and some people have managed to get out, but some are dead. And they kind of confront the monster by attacking it with a sign with a big concrete block on the bottom of it. And the monster grabs the American guy and pulls his arm off and then continues on its way. But later on, you find out that this guy was an American soldier, and they based the whole story of a virus around him, because the wound that you see, the arm taken off, is covered in blisters, and this guy's neck is covered in blisters. So you're wondering, did he get this from the monster actually, or what's the story? Because you find out later that there is no virus. So that was a big question mark. Okay, what's going on with this American soldier throughout the movie?
Well, there's this thing that's going on in the background, right? So you actually see him arguing with his girlfriend, saying, I got to go help the people. So like as the people are inside the trailer, they're stuck and they're trying to get out. And actually a mother says to Gung-do, my son is in there. You need to help him get out. So Gung-do runs up and tries to do the chain so the people can get out, and the soldier comes along to help him. And it's interesting because Gongdu is seen as like this big screw up, right? But in a like this emergency situation, he's one of the two people who's trying to help
Right, yeah.
other people, you know, and he doesn't stop once the people get out of the trailer. He goes with the soldier and they try to take down the monster, you know, and Gongdu gets blood on his face from the monster because he does manage to like impale the creature's tail in that moment. And then of course it's important that he got the blood on him.
Right.
Right, for what happens later. But I just think it's an interesting thing about his character because he's seen as this, you know, guy who can't do anything right, but he's out there trying to save people's lives when everyone else is in a complete panic.
Right. And then once, as soon as that confrontation is over, once the monster is on the run again, Gongdu is on the run again and finds his daughter because his daughter now is inside the food trailer and hears the commotion and comes outside and sees this panic. And Gongdu is running by at that moment, grabs her hand and pulls her along. And then it gets mixed up. He falls and he grabs her hand again, but you realize he doesn't have his daughter's hand. It's another little girl that he's
That is heart-wrenching. That is when you realize he's got the
looking
wrong kid's hand.
He's looking for her and he looks back and there she is right in the path of the monster. And that's when the monster runs by her. And you think she's okay for a second, but then the tail whips out, grabs her, and the monster jumps back into the Han River.
He completely loses his mind at this moment. He runs down. He's calling her name. Hanseo, Hanseo. He jumps into the water. He obviously can't swim. You know, he's wearing sweatpants. He's desperate. He's so desperate in that moment.
Yeah, the only thing that's going right in his life is his daughter. And he's seeing her being taken away. But you do get to see where that dolphin boat from Godzilla vs. Megalon ended up. Because when the monster, it almost knocks it over when the monster jumps in the water. A very similar looking boat.
And then when Hanseo is taken, Gongdu just becomes like catatonic. Yeah. Basically. His father's like pulling him on the wrist like he's a child because they have to evacuate the area. And he's just walking, you know, he's like a zombie.
Because for a while you can still see her getting trailed along by the monster in the water. Then the monster gets on the bank on the other side of the river, and just eats somebody, and he's still got her in his tail and then jumps back in the water again. So the next scene you see is that scene we mentioned a little bit earlier in the gym where they've got like a makeshift memorial for all these people that have been killed or lost during the afternoon's attack. And the brother shows up. Gongdu's brother shows up, who you can tell that they don't like each other. That the brother is also, he's unemployed, and maybe he just came back from a job interview because he's got a suit on. And they start to fight once he realizes that it was his brother that lost his niece. And so there's this scene that's a combined family outpouring of grief, but fighting at the same time. They all collapse on the floor, and it's
comical,
borderline comical, but tragic at the same time.
And it makes you wonder, like, how much time has passed, because I mean, they've all got it's very reminiscent of the 9/11, like the memorial walls that went up after the attack. Obviously, we're talking a couple of years after that incident, but they all had pictures of the victims. It's like you were able to pull that together pretty quick.
But then the government official shows up in his hazmat suit, and he's asking, like, who's had direct contact, and everybody's like very hesitant to raise their hands, but they do. Yeah. But they just get them, they get them all together anyway, and they put them on a bus to quarantine them, because here's the story where this monster has a virus that it's spreading. So not only is the monster a danger in itself, but it's also spreading this contagion.
It's like a living biological weapon.
Because of this, the military kind of retreats from the banks of the Han River. So that's why during the movie, you never really see like the army en masse hunting this thing, because they're all afraid of the virus. The only people down there are like biological experts. So every once in a while, when the family is there looking for the daughter, you see some people on the periphery that are there. But, you know, that's why they don't run into a lot more police presence down there. Everybody's afraid of this virus story that's been concocted.
Right. And it's so interesting because they're not given like a real explanation. And when they're in the hospital, Namju even points out that the doctors aren't wearing masks.
Right.
You know? So it's like, how seriously should they take this virus story? But I think what's really terrifying at this point is not necessarily the monster, but sort of this giant faceless apparatus of bureaucracy that sort of sucks the parks in, gives them no reasons, no explanations, and they can't get out of it. When later Gong-do gets a phone call from Han-seo on his cell phone.
Yeah, the family's in the hospital and they're still mourning her. They think that she's
Right.
dead.
Mm-hmm. And he gets this phone call and she says she's alive and she's in this big sewer, but the connection's bad and her phone is garbage, which she's told him earlier that she needs a new phone.
I need a new phone. Told you.
And so then he's trying to explain to the police officer in the hospital that she's called him, and he's like, your daughter's dead, right? And he's like, she's dead, but she's not dead.
Right. Work with me on this. Just go with it.
But the police don't believe him, and no one's going to let them leave. It doesn't matter what they say or what actually is going on, but they're like sort of now sucked into this, system that's going to like process them through as long as it takes. And to me, that's really scary. The loss of control that you have over your own life.
Bong Joon-ho, in the bonus features, he says he considers this more of a kidnap movie than a monster movie, because the main crux of the plot is them looking for the little girl. So I would have loved to have seen a similar scene to Taken with Liam Neeson. Put the monster on the phone.
Yeah, right.
I have a certain set of skills.
Yeah. Oh, I will find you.
I'm going to come after you, until I get my daughter back. But they do. They escape, and they're fugitives at this point. The family, the father, the two brothers, and the sister. And they go looking for the daughter because they believe him that and they really have no choice. What else do they have to hang on to but to believe that she's still alive?
Like I said before, this is where the family aspect really kicks into high gear. You see that, that they're going to do whatever they can to save this little girl. Yeah,
the father goes and spends all of his money and gives his credit cards away to get a map of the sewer and this equipment so they kind of know where they're going. And this is the interesting part, is they actually filmed this in the actual sewers of Korea.
Really?
Watching the bonus features, it must have been so disgusting to be there day after day, with the heat and the cold and the smell.
I was going to say,
that's not a set. Nothing you see there was a set. Even the monster's lair was an actual location.
Wow.
Which is
and
unbelievable.
I don't know if it was the producer or the production designer who was saying that they were all given vaccinations as if they had been the survivors of a water disaster, like the kind of vaccinations.
Well, if you're gonna stick them down in there, sure.
Yeah,
you better shoot me up, inoculate me.
Yeah, the biggest fear was of tapeworm, I think. Which I can imagine. But so they go in prepared. And in a tragic scene, they do have a confrontation with the monster pretty early on, all four members, and they're shooting at it, but it doesn't appear to be doing anything. And the father is killed by the monster.
Yeah.
Nice going, idiot.
And the monster seems to do it egregiously. It is pissed off that they've shot at it, and now it just slams the father against the concrete at the sidewalk.
I feel like you need, at this point, it's so hard for Gong-do, right? There's two constants in his life: his daughter and his father. His father's always with him, right? And
defended him.
Yeah. And his last act was defending them. He's waves them away from the monster. I'll take care of this. Get out, and then the monster gets him.
Yep.
Oh, but we jumped over the scene. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is after they've gone searching in the sewers. They go back to the food stand, because they haven't found Han-seo. They haven't found any evidence of the monster, and they're tired and they're hungry, so they're making food. And it's almost like this shared dream that happens, where Han-seo sort of appears behind Gong-do. Nobody says anything.
Yes, and she joins in on the meeting.
He starts feeding her, and every member of the family gives food to her. It's such a beautiful scene. There's no words. And it's, like I said, it's almost like a dream that they're all having, that she's there and that she's safe, and they can feed her, they can nourish her. She's so important to the family, because this family, it's like they have no future, and all their futures are invested
riding on her.
In Han-seo.
After the father dies is when Gong-do is captured again. So he spends a good part of the movie in the hospital again while his two siblings are on the run. And this is where his brother manages to use some of his connections. A former student friend of his gets him so he can trace the call that she had made from the monster's lair. So they know where to go to look for her. And while Gung-do is in the hospital, they've got him in this contraption where they're going to take brain tissue out to see what if this
man's
virus
brain
that
is our
doesn't
last
exist.
hope, they said. Right?
Then we get the second American, or the third American actor that we've seen in this movie, Paul Lazar from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He lets go without realizing that Gung-do is listening in, that they've not really found any trace of a virus. And that this sounds like it's a cover-up by the U.S. government because they don't want the public to know that they're really the cause of this creature. So they've cooked up the story of a virus, and they are going to hold Gung-do.
So first they're taking a tissue sample out of his neck, which is one of the most horrifying scenes in the movie.
Because they've given him anesthetic.
Right, and he's supposed to be asleep, but he's
Yeah, but he's not.
screaming.
Yeah.
He's screaming all through this. You see this huge needle going into his neck. There's like this intense close-up on it. And then they say they're going to take it, basically what they're going to do is take a tissue sample from the front of his brain, which is supposed to have evidence of the virus. And this is it's horrifying. It's so gut-wrenching because he's screaming, there's no virus. I need to get to my daughter. Please let me go. I need to go. Please stop. I need to go. And it's so hard to watch because you just feel, again, that sort of helplessness of being sucked up into this bureaucracy that's not going to let you go until it's ready to.
And you're unsure, like, how many people know that there's no virus.
Right, I was going to say, now he's part of the narrative. They're just using him to propagate their story.
If we go back to the monster's lair, the monster is bringing all these bodies back to the lair.
He's puking up skulls and bones.
He's puking up skulls because he's collecting food,
right?
To save and eat at a later time. And the girl's kind of hiding in the hole in the wall in this lair. And two of the bodies that the monster brings back were they brothers? Were they father and son? I'm not really sure what their relationship was.
They're brothers in quotation. So they're both basically homeless kids who are just sort of kind of latched on together, and the older one is
one's like a teenager, late teenager, and the younger one is probably 7-8 years old.
Right, Siju.
And the monster regurgitates both of them. The older is dead, but Siju is alive. Hyun-so, she's taking care of him now in the monster's lair. And they can't get out because probably 30 feet down, and there's no way for them to climb out, so they're stuck in this hole until somebody finds them. So the movie keeps flashing back to them in the lair while her family is out there trying to find her. And now Gung-do, he escapes the hospital.
The nurse came to take a blood sample from him, and he seems like he's catatonic. He's just sitting.
Yeah, you wonder how he's even functioning. And
she flicks him with her finger, and she says, "Hey, think." And he suddenly, just very, in one big movement, basically grabs the vial full of his blood, grabs her around the neck, and says, "Open the door or I'm going to give her the virus."
Yeah.
And then he's using it threateningly. It's like, hey, you want virus?
Yep.
He's he's gonna spray the blood on anybody, and they're all just sort of frantically stumbling out of the way because the people who remain are people who believe he is sick.
Yep.
They don't want it, and he shouts at someone, "Start the engine," and a second later you see the ambulance pulling away. So he's taken the ambulance, and it's kind of incredible at this point. There's a transformation in him that occurs after they impale, drill through his brain. He just seems, there's no more trace of this sort of rubber boned kind of screw up. He's very focused. He knows exactly what to do. Physically, even he's changed. He's just even moves in a much more straightforward way than he does at the beginning of the movie. One of the reasons why he fell down when he was running from the monster with Hyun-seo is because his shoes are not tied. And you see him falling all the time at the beginning of the film, right? His shoes are always falling off, literally falling off his feet. But at this point, he's not like that anymore. Now he knows where Hanseo is. He's going to her. Like nothing's going to stop him.
He's got a mission.
Right.
He's on a mission.
And his siblings are also converging because the sister, Namju, she encounters the monster and gets knocked down into another hole that the monster can't get into to get her. So she's safe for the time being. So, and as we said, the brother has determined where she is from tracing that call. So he sends out a message to his siblings, like where to go to, where he's figured out where the girl is most likely being kept. And he falls in with a homeless man who agrees to help him as well. So the backdrop of what's going on from the public perspective is the government has come up with a chemical called Agent Yellow that they say is going to flush out and kill the monster. It's like it's an antiviral thing, obviously similar to maybe like an Agent Orange type of chemical warfare type of thing. So the government is going to unleash this chemical, but at the same time, there's demonstrators that are going to gather to protest them unleashing the chemical. So, and in the backdrop of all this is the monster. So it kind of leads into the end game because the monster in one great suspenseful scene kind of plays possum in its lair. Hanseo has done the equivalent of tying sheets together. So the monster has left all these bodies to feast upon, and she has removed the clothing and tied them together.
Genius. From
these bodies to throw it up there as kind of like a grappling hook on the railing that's, many feet above her. So she manages to do so, and the thing is, and the makeshift rope of clothing is kind of dangling there, but it's too far up for her to grab. So the monster comes back, and at one point seems to be sleeping right underneath this rope that she's made. So she has an idea. She's going to climb up on the monster's back and jump up and get herself on this rope. She throws a soda can at the monster to see if it's sleeping, and it doesn't react. So you wonder if this thing knows exactly what she's doing or if it just wakes up once. You don't know. But she jumps up on its back. She actually makes it to the rope. She's about to climb up, and then suddenly again, the tentacle wraps around her waist and is holding her there.
It's done so beautifully because suddenly you don't actually see the tail at first. She just suddenly lets go
freezes,
of the clothing. And she seems like she's floating away.
Yeah.
And then the camera pans and you see it wrapped around her.
Right. And he's very, very gently puts her on the ground. And again, you don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like, nope, sorry. You're not going anywhere.
Like as if the monster knew that she was in that hole the whole time and has been trying to draw her out because there is the little boy as well looking at her. He's outside the hole and she's like, get back in there. And he's peeing his pants. He can't move. And
I was peeing my pants too.
Once she's there, once the monster releases her, she runs back for the hole, but it's too late. The monster grabs both of them and then cut to black. And then you're in the next scene. So when the monster comes out of the hole and he's making his way towards the demonstration, the family sees the monster and they see the hand coming out of its mouth. They see her in its mouth. So they know that she could still be alive. So they are chasing the monster over the bridge. They're tracking it as they're running across the bridge, as it's swimming across the Han to make its way to the demonstrators on the other side. So here we get the climax of the movie. And again, the monster in full view, full daylight, and very similar scene to where he creates havoc on the riverfront. He also creates havoc amongst the demonstrators.
It's such a crazy scene because there's this big mechanism, which is like gushing just a little bit of the almost like just like smoke wisps of this Agent Yellow, right? And there's all these demonstrators, and there's this announcement that's almost like Mother and Alien, saying like, you have like such and such time to get to minimal safe distance, and saying that these demonstrators need to leave. And you realize that the mechanism of government is not going to stop for a few people standing on, from their point of view, from a few people standing on the side of the river. They're going to drop this Agent Yellow, whether there are people there or not. And one of the demonstrators turns around and sees the monster coming. And it's such a great scene. It's so, to me, so 21st century. She takes out her camera, starts taking a picture of it, and her boyfriend's like, let's go. Like he grabs her and it's like, we gotta leave. So nobody was going to move for the chemical that was about to be dropped, but now the monster's coming, so they're all running.
You get the sense that the chemical may have worked, actually, because it stuns the monster, momentarily at least, and it's
But all
kind
the
of wallowing
people
there.
in the vicinity are like throwing up blood.
Yeah.
Their ears are bleeding, right? You know that anybody who's sort of come in contact with this cloud is probably finished. But the monster's still going. It can't be stopped. And then it's so great because Namju, Namil, and Gongdu sort of all contribute to the final.
They gather their forces and they all join in the battle, as does the homeless man.
Yeah,
right.
It's a beautiful scene where the homeless man is pouring gasoline on the monster, and the monster like looks up and opens his mouth and is to drink the gasoline.
Go ahead, bring it on, bring it on.
It's also established earlier because the scene when the father shoots the monster from inside the food stand, the monster has its mouth open and it's drinking the rain. So it's so great because Bong Joon-ho does nothing in this film that's not sort of established earlier, so the behavior has already been seen and he's just showing it to you again. It feels liquid. Yep. So it turns its head to open up because it probably thinks it's rain, right? It's not experienced gasoline. How would it know?
The plan obviously is to, after the gasoline is poured on it, the brother is going to throw his Molotov cocktail and set the thing on fire. But he reaches back to throw it and it slips out of his hand. So, but the sister is right there. She's got her bow and arrow.
Yep.
She
Katniss.
She dips the arrow into the fire and lets loose and nails it right in the eye. And
smile, you son of a.
Yep. And it just engulfs in flame, and it's like there's these great slow-mo shots of it just galloping around on fire.
And it's running toward the Han River, right? Because it's smart
escape,
enough
to
know that it can get into the water and get away. And then this glorious scene where Gongdu comes out of nowhere with a broken piece of the sign and impales it in the mouth. And, he just has this look on his face like, you are not getting away this time. You're not leaving. And then finally it's finished.
And they force the mouth open and they see Yanseo's hand coming out of the mouth. They grab her and pull her out, and what seems like, a birth in a way, because the mouth opening is very vaginal.
Yes.
Vaginal?
Mm-hmm.
So they pull her out, and it's she's stillborn, unfortunately. She's
got her hand wrapped around
him.
Yeah, she's protecting him. And again, something that's been established earlier is Seju, at different points in the movie, at least twice before, had stopped breathing, right? And then he sort of coughs and breathes again. Yep. So he's clearly got some kind of condition. But this actually saves his life because he has stopped breathing while he's inside the monster, and then he coughs and he wakes up again. And Namju and Namil are weeping over Hyanseo, and Gongdu picks up Seju, and so it's now almost like these two orphans, found each other. Yeah, and he was present at his birth almost. You could look at it that way, as he pulled him from the monster's mouth. Right. So this is now his child.
This is 2 weeks in a row where our main protagonist, which is a little girl, dies at the end.
Yeah.
Nice going there, TMI. So uplifting.
But we get a very sweet epilogue in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think so.
Where you see the food
did
cart.
In Pan's Labyrinth too.
So Gongdu is now the owner, so he's taken over the food cart. Yep. His father's food cart, and
take a little pride in his work.
And his son is helping him. So and there is a little, what if scene where they thinks he sees something outside, but that's never really
that's for the host too.
That's for the host too.
Yeah. I did find it funny that they took the time to frame their wanted poster.
Yeah.
You can see it in the food cart. That's great.
Yeah, there's all these pictures of the family around, not just the wanted poster, but pictures of their father and pictures of Hyanseo, and that the family sort of still with
them. Yep.
Again, like I was saying right at the top, a great monster movie.
Yep.
It's not strictly a monster movie, but as a monster movie, it excels. I think, again, for subverting the expectation that monster movies over the course of time have given horror movie fans, where it gives you that monster full view every single scene that it's in. And Bong Joon-ho says that whenever he showed the monster, he wanted to give the impression that just existing was painful for this monster because it was deformed. And you could see, like, in one eye looks normal and the other eye is covered with blisters and everything else. It is just a very mutant-y looking creature, but still beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, it was lovingly referred to as Steve Buscemi on set.
Really?
Yeah, that was its nickname. I'm sure Buscemi was.
But, as we alluded to before, Song Kang-ho is just amazing in this. After this, because you're saying how brilliant he was in Parasite and how they should give more attention. I thought the same thing about The Host, but it's been, over 10 years. And we as an American audience, you, Christina, would view this differently. But for a mainstream audience that saw The Host, you haven't really seen him until now from all these years later.
Yeah, he's just Toshiro Mifune is my favorite actor, and Song Kang-ho is probably my second favorite actor because he reminds me of Toshiro Mifune and in the way that he really sort of physically embodies his characters. At the beginning of this movie, when you first see him, it's almost like he has no joints. He just moves almost like he's moving through water, just really sort of rubber person. And, his face is very slack, his hair is hanging in his face. His shoulders are slightly hunched. He has this whole sort of physicality of this character, which communicates so much to you without him ever saying a word. And then, like I said, later in the film, all that's gone. It's complete. He's completely transformed. He physically, he walks more upright. He moves with more purpose. He does this with all of his roles. And I just think he's so underrated in the West. In Korea, he's like a mega star. Okay. He's like Harrison Ford in Korea. In fact, he's so popular, in Korea, the actor who played Ki-woo, Choi Wo-sik in Parasite, he said he was afraid to talk to him when he first got on set because he was so intimidated because Song Kang-ho is such a huge star.
Wow.
And he's been in basically every huge Korean film of the last 15, 20 years. He's been in them. I just think he's so amazing. But again, you don't want to take anything away from the rest of the cast because the rest of the cast is awesome too.
Yeah.
They're all,
because this is an ensemble just like Parasite.
Right, yeah, correct. Yeah.
So are we looking to induct 2 movies in one episode into the 5 bucket list?
How could you not?
For me, yes.
Yeah.
How could you not? There you go.
And Jim had said he hadn't watched this movie in about 5 or 6 years. I don't know how long it had been for you, Jeff. When you...
Probably at least that long. I do remember my buddy giving me this disc, and he's like, "Dude, you got to watch this movie." Yeah, it's probably at least that long.
Yeah, and the criteria for me, if you want to go out and own this movie, this needs to be on your shelf after the first time you see it. That is a 5 bucket movie, and that definitely was The Host for me.
Yeah.
And I own this movie, and I watch it 4 or 5 times a year. So every year I just get in the mood sometimes and I'm like,
host it up, kids.
Well, sound the alarms, play the fanfare. We are inducting The Host into the 5 bucket list. So this we have a confessional that's based around Parasite in particular. So it's based around our features this week.
Confessionals.
Let's put ourselves in the shoes of the Kim family in Parasite. So if there's any one member of that family that you relate to most, and say if you were in the movie Parasite, who would you be playing out of the Kim family? Now, I obviously don't want to limit this to gender. This is open season. Who would like to start?
Go ahead.
I don't know. I was thinking about it since yesterday, and I think for me, I feel the most like probably Ki-woo, in that he, life has sort of tried to grind him down, but he still has this almost absurd hopefulness future, especially at the end of the film, when you hear him thinking to himself, and he's like, "Dad, I have a plan." His father's already told him, don't plan anything.
Right. But he saw how well that worked out.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. So.
and he says, Dad, I have a plan. I'm going to make all this money and I'm going to buy the house. You know, I really appreciate that about his character. I think that even though a part of me is a very cynical person, I think I still have, you know, that sort of
Right.
unreasoning hope sometimes.
Yeah.
So I feel like I probably connect the most with Kiwoo.
I was jokingly going to say the guy peeing in the alleyway.
But I've been so sincere now, Jeff. You can't do that.
I know. I actually went with the Park family though, and not the Kim family.
Really?
So yeah, I think I would be Dasong. I would be the kid, because I would just oblivious to everything going on in the adult world. I'd be running around with my bow and arrows and talking on my walkie-talkies. And yes, I would be absolutely traumatized if I saw that guy come out of the basement. I would still be in therapy. Plus, that's little Miss Jessica there, Ki Jong. She was pretty damn hot for a teacher. So I could draw my art.
He's a little young for that.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at it from the back end. So
I would say Key-Tech.
if I had to choose.
Yeah, because I am inherently lazy. I would also toast to anybody whose hard work gives me a living. So I would definitely
to a large
Key-Tech.
extent, he was kind of dragged into it by his family. So I think out of all of them, he was the most reluctant to.
There's that scene when they're in the house and he says, do you think that other driver got a job? He was probably okay, right? Like he's worried.
Right, yeah, he was concerned about that. Yeah, because they are causing collateral damage along the way. And the daughter was just like, screw that. You think about us.
That he has a conscience. That plagues him. And that's another reason why I kind of took
and I think
to
he
him
really had
as a
to
character.
swallow it. Yeah. I agree.
So there you go.
There you go.
We'll have to, and I'm almost sad to say this. We're going to have to draw this episode to a close.
That's a $5 bucket. That's 10 bucket. Yeah. That's a 10 bucket episode right there, kids.
But next week on TMI, we are going to be covering a movie that I would have hoped that would have been nominated for an Oscar, but I don't believe it has in any of the categories.
Them? What?
Us.
Us? We're up for a nomination?
No, Us the movie, Jeff. Us the movie.
Yeah, you're confusing me with these pronouns.
Directed by Jordan Peele, the much celebrated filmmaker who gave us Get Out.
Get Out.
We've never talked about this movie, even when it was fresh in the theater.
And I was strong-armed into watching it.
Strong-armed by a suggestion.
I know. I'm easily swayed, apparently. I thought strong-armed me too much.
So we will be covering Us next week. And as its co-feature, Them.
Brilliant.
See, if you're thinking, is that old black and white giant ant movie from the 50s? You're damn tootin'. It is. So
that's right.
So think about it. Us and Them. And at this point, I think the music should be slowly fading up underneath me.
The big swell.
Yeah. Yes. So Us and Them next week, right here on TMI. So
we got to balance this out.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode.
Yes. Thank you as always for listening.
Yeah. Hope you'll join us next week. Thank you again, Jeff, Christina.
Thank you.
Christina.
Next week. Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
Boom, boom, boom.